Okay, today's morning medicine is Camphora, which is camphor, basically. I'm running late because I just got off a call from um the UK. You know, homeopath comes on, people bring their cases, and she just nice to see experienced homeopath and how they go through looking at things. So camphor has a direct relationship to muscles and fascia. Anyways, it's the muscles and the sheaths around the muscles. In local rheumatic disorders in cold climates, in cold climates, the muscles and the fascia and all that'll start aching. Distension of veins, which is varicose veins, as a heart stimulant for emergency, use camphor. It is the most satisfactory remedy. So anybody having heart angina pectoris, heart issues, and they have an emergency situation, you want to think of camphor homeopathically. Drop doses on sugar. That's how we give it all the time on sugar tablets, as often as every 5 minutes. Also for colds and chills. So any colds that come with chills and fever and that. Camphora corrects spoiled cases and antidotes most of the medicines, especially the vegetable kingdom. So they always say don't have camphor, actual camphor around when you're opening your medicines because it antidotes a lot of them, especially the vegetable kingdom, and it'll antidote cases that are you're working on a case or you're helping somebody, you're giving medicines and things aren't working and things aren't to restart the case you want to do camphor. And they also say, because it does antidote a lot of things, but they'll say take sulfur too to restart the case. There's a few of them that you can take. In cholera epidemics, so big medicine for cholera epidemics, where camphor has achieved classical fame. So these cholera epidemics, camphor has, uh, back in the 1900s, famously worked, and people really uplifted camphor in them situations. In some epidemics, camphor given early has alone cured a large majority of the cases treated, and that whether given in drop doses or in the tincture or in 30C. So whether you're giving it in homeopathically or in tincture form, camphor or camphora basically has helped a lot of majority of cases in any kind of epidemics, flus and, trying to think, cholera, flus, all these kind of things, especially Asiatic flu, cholera, Asiatic cholera. In the collapse of cholera, so if you see these ladies, they faint, and they fall out from grief or shock or whatever, you would think of camphor. But in collapse of cholera, so when someone gets cholera and they just collapse and they can't function, it corresponds rather to the initial chill before either vomiting or diarrhea. So they have a chill and then they're vomiting and have diarrhea, and they you would consider it the initial stage of it with when cholera starts. The tongue is cold. Everything's cold on this, but the tongue is especially cold. If he can speak, the voice is either high pitched or husky, so they're hoarse. So they're either talking real high, they can't get it out, or they're talking real low and they're real graspy. The camphor cramps are less pronounced than in cupromed, which is copper. So there's cramps with camphora, but it's not as bad as cupromed. If they got bad cramps, you'd think of cupromed. Calcarb's another one. But cramps with icy coldness of limbs is characteristic of camphora. Any icy coldness, and there would be blueness of the skin, but icy coldness really points to camphora. The coldness of camphora resembles that of veracium, another one with the coldness. But with the latter, which is camphora, the discharges are copious, and camphora has marked nausea, where veracium doesn't have the so much of the discharges in a cold or flu. You got a cold or flu, and that you'd be thinking veracium because of the coldness, but camphora has a lot of mucus and has nausea. The upper lip is drawn up. So I don't know how that looks. Something like that. Saucer, a homeopath, says the cases calling for it are those in which arterial spasms, which is your arteries, are spasming. So that would be in the heart situations you would consider it. With difficult breathing. So they're not only having blood flow problems, but they're having hard time breathing. Now that blood is how you get the oxygen to the lungs. So that might be why they're having a hard time, the difficulty breathing. They're not getting the oxygen that they need. Spasm of pulmonary arteries. So I don't know if that's a stroke so much or what that is. But anyways, coldness and lividity. Coldness with blueness of skin is what lividity is, are the leading features of camphora. So, Camphora, the main things medically are state of collapse. That's a three. So people get a flu, a cold, a cholera, whatever, and they just collapse and they're laying there. Now, um, uh, what is it? Gelsemium would be another one for state of collapse. I told a lady to go get that gelsemium for a girl who had like a state of collapse. Basically just laying there. Um, and it overcame it. Icy coldness is a three. These are all three. State of collapse, icy coldness, yet adverse to covers. So even though they're so cold and they just can't take the covers, so they just they can't take it. Anyways, if you try to cover them, they kick them off. That is a big keynote of Camphora. There's a few of them that have that. First stage of cold and sneezing in a flu, a cold, or whatever. That's the first stage of it. And that's what they said, the initial stage of a chill and all that. You would give Camphora to knock out that situation. Pain is better by, oh, this is the modalities, right? Yeah. Okay, let's go to worst discharges. So, or better discharges. So any sweat, any bleeding, any mucus coming out, it's all better from those discharges. Sweat, better from sweat, better from warmth, worse from cold air. Even though they don't want to be covered, they don't can't take the cold air and they'd rather have warmth. Any suppressions, that's a three. Sweat suppressions, menses suppressed, leukorrhea suppressed, sinus stuff suppressed, skin stuff suppressed. Any suppressions makes a camphora patient worse. Worse motion and at night, pain, better thinking of it. So when they think of the pain, so they have a pain in their arm or something and they think of it, it makes it feel better. That's a very interesting, that's a three. Violent convulsions. So that's the epileptic type of convulsions. And chilliness. Chilliness is a three. Let's see. In causation, ill effects of shocks. So any shocks. Now you think of there's a few medicines like Ignatia, Nat Mur. There's a few of them that have shocks, but this would be one. And when they get a shock, whether a grief, an injury, whatever, any kind of shock they get, you would think of camphora. And aconite is another one that would be considered in the beginning of colds, any kind of shocks that bring on something. You would think of camphora. You might think of aconite and a few others. Shocks from injury, camphora. Arnica could be, aconite. A lot of them. Operations, any kind of operations they have, camphora would be considered. Shocks again, sunstroke, snake bites. Now, snake bite, I would think of some of the snake remedies like lachesis and I forget the other couple. But anyways, they have a snake bite and have symptoms from it. Camphora might be considered. Sunstroke, too much sun, you would consider it. Afraid of thoughts. So they don't want their thoughts. They want to distract from all their thoughts. This is the mind. Fears being alone. So they need company. Pulsatilla has that. There's a few of them have that. Anxiety, mania. Oh, go to the book in the mind. There's a lot in the mind. I don't know if I should go through it all. The mind, the mind, the mind. Where's the mind? Okay. Insensibility, vanishing of all senses or anxiety, awkwardness, delirium, mania. So delirium or mania. That's manic depression, I would imagine. They're delirious or they're manic. Religious purpural. So during pregnancy, they get very religious. Wants to jump out of bed or out of the window. That's the depression part of it. Does not like anyone near him. Even though they want company, they don't want people near him. Now that's an arnica. Arnica's like, oh, don't come near me. They back off. Someone gets into a car accident. Are you okay? And you come close and they back off. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Camphora has that same thing. Nothing satisfies him. What is that? Chamomile has that. Give me this. I don't want that. Give me that. I don't want that either. Excited, talks constantly. That's that mania. Scolds and indecent language. So they're cursing and swearing. And as you'll see, they bite and spit and all that. Feeling that she is going to die. Relieved when she finds herself alive. Attacks of anguish at night. State of frenzy. Hysterical. Scratches, spits, bites, tears her clothes. And of course, cursing and all that. Screams and calls for help, closes her eyes and answers no questions. Now, that all can be in colds, flus, and it can be just the fact that they have manic depression and they get all these symptoms come out certain times. Cramps in the abdomen, cutting, colic at night, so a cutting pain with colic at night, cold burning heat in epigastrium, which is the lower half of the uh, abdomen on the sides. Doesn't say right or left side, but it's the lower half they have a burning heat on the lower half of the abdomen on the sides. Drawing and fullness in the abdomen back. Tension, stiffness in the neck. So there's a lot of tension and stiffness in the neck. That's why I always say, people say, oh, I woke up, I slept wrong. No, you didn't sleep wrong. You got something coming on, cold, flu, whatever's going on. Tension between shoulders. So there's tension in the neck, tension between the shoulders, pressure in the small of the back, and feels cold air blowing on back. So even if there isn't cold air, it feels like there is. And there's a lot with coldness with Camphora. Cold feeling followed by cold breath. So they have a cold feeling over the whole body and their breath will feel cold. They have a dry trachea. That's probably brings on that hoarseness. Cramps in the chest and shootings. So shooting pains, cramps in the chest, cramps in the abdomen. There's a lot of cramping. I think cramping in the muscles. Heat and redness, especially in the lobes of the ear, very hot and red. Abscess, so the rest of the body's cold, but the earlobes are hot and red. Abscess in meatus of the ear, and the inside they have an abscess with pressing, shooting pain. Eyes are fixed and staring. That's in that, any kind of, when they have a flu and a cold and they're just fixed and stared. Turns upward, the eyes will turn upward or outward. That's a weird outward. I don't how the eyes turn outward. Pupils are dilated. That belladonna in that in a cold and flu, fixed staring, uh, pupils dilated. You would consider belladonna along with camphora and a few other ones probably. Objects are too bright. They can't. That's photophobia. They can't. Objects seem too bright. Now the photophobia is from light, but these objects seem too bright. So that's a strange one for camphora. And the eyes protrude with their mania. So that fixed staring, the eyes protruding, or the pupils flipping upward and being dilated. That'd probably undoubtedly be in all the mania type of stuff going on there. Face is pale, haggard. They just look old and haggard and worn out. They're anxious. That's a 3. Distorted. They got an anxious look on their face. Their face can become distorted. That could be in the epileptic stuff going on. Bluish. So that's that not getting the oxygen and being cold. They get this bluish uh, tint to their face, even though it's pale. Cold sweat. So they have a cold sweat. Lockjaw. Good for lockjaw. A few medicines for that. Froth of foam at mouth. So the mouth has got a lot of foam and froth in it. And you'll notice that when people speak, they'll have like foam coming out. Menses are profuse. It's just from being dry. Menses profuse or absent. So they can either have them coming on like crazy or they're absent, and that'd be worse suppression. where was I? Where's the female? Sex drive increased. So they get, their sex drive is increased. They need, think of Camphora. They have hot flashes with coldness of abdomen and limbs at menopause. So the abdomen and the limbs are cold, but they're having hot flashes, and which would be like that cold sweat. Labor-like pains during the menses, I would imagine. Weakness of the sex system. So even though they have increased sex drive, they have a weakness around that whole area. Bitter taste in the mouth, especially from meat. They don't like meat. It tastes bitter. Dislike, they dislike food. It's repugnance. Oh, dislike and repugnance to tobacco smoke. Sorry. They can't, and that, I don't like it at all, tobacco smoke. But anyways, it just really repels them. Excessive thirst. So there's that dry mouth with the foaming at the mouth and all that. Occipital throbbing synchronous with pulse. So you feel their pulse, and they know their pulse. They can feel their pulse throbbing in the back of their head. Fleeting stitches in temporal region. So they got sharp pains in the temporal region up front, along with this throbbing in the back that corresponds to the pulse. The temporal region and the orbits, the stitching pain in the eyes and the temples. Anxiety in the heart, spasmodic stitches, and that they said arterial spasms is what I just read. Palpitation after eating, so they eat and their heart palpitates. The pulse, I guess, gets more rapid, but the pulse is usually weak, frequent, and small. So it's a fast pulse, but it's weak, barely can feel it. Except for, I guess, when they get this headache thing going on, it's throbbing and they can feel the pulse in their head and everything. Burning in strangury, which means they have a burning in the kidneys and they can't go to the bathroom. It's strangled basically, with tenesmus of neck of bladder. So the neck of the bladder always feels like they gotta go, but they have that strangury. They can't go, and there's burning with it. Hematuria, which is blood in the urine, and retention. So yeah, having a hard time urinating. They obviously got kidney stuff going on, and they always feel like they gotta go. And then when they do, they have some blood in it. Rheumatic pain between shoulders, numbness, tingling, and coldness is all up around the shoulder area, but they have these rheumatic pains. Cracking of joints, so the joints are always cracking, so this would be one. Graphites has cracking of joints. There's a few of them. No liver, lungs, asphyxia, and neonatorum. So the baby can't breathe. That's a newborn asphyxia. You would think of camphor right away. That would open it up. I think they smack them in the butt. You had camphor there, tincture, or homeopathically. Even if they smelled it, they'd probably open up the start the breathing process. Asthma, worse exertion. So any asthma situation, a lot of lung stuff with this camphor. And you think about it, they put camphor in them atomizers so that you can breathe it in. And it opens up the sinuses and helps with the lung stuff. Breath is cold. That's a big one. Breath is cold. That's a 3. Breathing is anxious and oppressed. Hoarse, squeaking voice. Violent attack of dry cough. So their cough would be violent. Suffocative dyspnea. So dyspnea is, can't get their breath, which is the asthma and all that, and asphyxia. But they have suffocation. They feel like they're suffocating, and that gives you the cold body, the cold stuff going on. Cutting cold, feeling deep in windpipe, causes slight cough. So that's where it's coming. Down in the windpipe, there's like this cutting cold, and I imagine breathing in cold air makes it worse. This cough come on. Foam in the mouth. I've switched these two around. The male, sexual excitement. Both of them have sexual excitement, so it has an affinity for the sex organs. Cordy is a curved penis. I think they're calling, what are they calling that now? You have PD, OD. I forget. They got a pill now for that. The Aliapas for what we call cordy, curved penis. Try camphor instead of those pills. What is that called? They call it. Do you have oh, I forget, but they call it something. You'll see the commercials now. It They call it something when the penis is curved. Camphora homeopathically may just do the trick. Priapism, which is painful 4-hour erections, and then the other pill they have is that little blue pill. What is that called? Do you have Peyronie's disease? Is the curved penis they're saying, and take these pills, and then I imagine they got side effects, just like the blue pill. You take them, and if you have a erection more than 4 hours, you got a problem. You better get to the doctor. I say if you have that, try Camphora. But quit taking the little blue pill. There's other ways, whether it's your diet or some homeopathic medicine to help you with your erections, rather than that blue pill, which could basically blow up your heart. Nightly emissions. And the funny thing with that blue pill is I remember hearing them saying the guys were going blind from taking that blue pill. And I thought, yeah, they used to tell us in Catholic school that if you touch that thing, you'll go blind. So quite a quite interesting how everything kind of relates to each other. Nightly emissions. So I don't know if they're having sex dreams. Probably they're overly sex, so they have wet dreams. Basically, is what we call that. Ceriasis, which is uncontrolled sex desire. So this guy has uncontrolled sex desire, nightly emissions. Now this could be good in these, you know, predators and sexual predators of males and that. You might think of camphor that might settle that all down and help them not be such a menace to society. Impotent. So even though they have all this desire in that, they are impotent. Colds and pinched. Nose is cold and pinched. So that's why I say everything is cold, but the nose is cold and it feels like it's pinched off. And that's a 3. Coryza in old age. So older people have a lot of mucus. You'd think of camphora. Inhaled air seems cold. That's what I was saying. That, and that probably that cutting cold feeling deep in windpipe. That inhaled air probably is what giving them that cough. It just seems cold when they inhale. Persistent nosebleed. That's a 3. You would give that with goosebumps. So they have this nosebleed all the time and they get the chills, which it gives them goosebumps. Or they have coryza's worse change of weather with sneezing. It can be, and it's all stopped up. So anytime there's change of weather and they have all this mucus coming out and they're sneezing and then it gets stopped up, you would think of camphora. Black stools, involuntary. So these stools are very dark. Rice water stools. This is in diarrhea. This is not diarrhea. Asiatic cholera with cramps. That's where you get that rice water stools, from that Asiatic cholera with cramps. So you would definitely consider camphora for any cholera situations, epidemics going around. That's where it shined big time. It really took care of a lot of those, an epidemic of cholera coming around. Collapse with great weakness. So they just collapse and they're just totally weak. Dryness, bluish and cold with cold body. So the skin's dry, but it's bluish and it's very cold, and the whole body's cold. They're old looking. That's a 3. Cannot bear to be covered. Sequela has that also. So even though their body's cold and they're real cold, this is a very big keynote for it. Camphora and sequela. If you look that up, can't bear to have the covers on. Sequela and camphora. I didn't look up sequela to see if it has the coldness of the body. Erysipelas, which is skin disorders, skin rashes. Their skin is sensitive to touch. They don't feel like they can't be touched. Sequela of measles. So that's a pathological condition set up on the skin after they have measles. So they have measles and then they have this skin condition forever afterwards. You would think of camphora. Restless insomnia with cold limbs. So anybody can't sleep and their limbs are cold at night and they have some of these other things, you consider camphora, because there can be a lot of insomnia medicines. Oppressive pain and pit of stomach with coldness, of course. 3, there's coldness everywhere with camphora. Any coldness, you would right away start thinking camphora. Followed by burning in the stomach. So it says in the pit of the stomach, they have this burning sensation. They vomit bile and blood, and bile's coming from the liver. but they're vomiting bile and blood when they do vomit. Toothache from swelling of some submaxillary glands. So the glands up in the face are swelling and they're giving them a toothache, but the teeth also have looseness, shocks at root of incisors. So the roots of I know like silica has the roots have this pain. You would think of silica with this tooth pain. Camphora has the looseness. You might think of mercury, something like that. So there's a few medicines with this looseness and the shocks of pain at the root of the incisors. There's other ones that are pain at the top of the teeth you would consider. Icy coldness, the whole body, congestive chill. So they get this chill on this whole body and it's icy cold. That's a 3. Inflammatory fevers. Tongue is cold. That's a 3. So any inflammatory fevers will give you this icy coldness, this chill, this you'd be hot, then you'd have a really cold chill. Soreness and swallowing of the throat. So the throat is sore. It's not like a lump. It's not stabbing or like a fishbone, like some medicines. But it's this soreness when they swallow. Dry scraping palate. So the top of the mouth has this dry scraping sensation, and there's a constriction of the larynx, which is giving you the hoarseness undoubtedly. Vertigo with tendency to unconsciousness. So there's that passing out. They're always passing out. They're always, just fainting, basically. Feels he would die. Yeah, feels he would die. So there's always this feeling like, oh, I might die. This might kill me, you know. So that's a whole mental thing there, feeling of a die. Let's see, afraid of thoughts. So that might be why they're afraid of thoughts, because they're always feeling like they're going to die. So camphora is indicated in many conditions of sudden collapse, fainting, vertigo collapse, cholera collapse, influenza collapse from overpowering influences acting on the nervous system centers. Sorry. So the nervous centers, that's why you see these ladies pass out and stuff. These, whether it's a grief, a shock, an influenza, cholera, whatever it is, these overpowering influences just cause them to collapse. For example, sunstroke would do it. Vitality ebbing away. So it feels like their vital force is just ebbing away. And that might be why they feel like they're going to die. Fainting spells, uh, body is icy and bathed in cold sweat. So they're fainting, their body's cold, and they're faint. They have this the body's icy cold, and they have this cold sweat rather than a hot sweat. Chill, cramp, convulsions with mental anguish. These give an idea of the essential action of camphor. Any cramping, I would think of the calc ones that I just went over. Um, Calcarbonate, any chills, convulsion, mental anguish, all this stuff. Any mental situations that come up, you think of camphora with cramps, convulsions, like epileptic. It causes retreat from the circumference to the center, and its chief remedial action is in correcting just such conditions. So, from the outer part of the body, it attacks the inner part of the body. You would consider this. Cold, collapse, eruptive diseases. So eruptive meaning skin stuff coming out on the skin, all of a sudden a bunch of mucus or, probably discharges of mucus, sweating, those kind of things. There's eruptions all of a sudden. And aconite you would consider too, arnica fluidum for these colds, flus that come on, and it's just all of a sudden there, and they have this collapse. Great coldness. Now, aconite has restlessness, and arsenicum has restlessness, but you would, if they have a lot of coldness and a collapse and all this kind of stuff in an eruptive type of disease, you would consider camphora. Great coldness of surface with sudden and complete prostration of vital forces. So the skin is very cold, and they have this, all of a sudden they just feel like, ugh, they just feel, wow, man, I'm just worn out. you would consider this one and Camphora, and you would consider, oh, 29. Anyways, feeling as if a cold wind were blowing over body and all kinds of sudden internal pains arising from the chill. So they get a chill and they get all these internal pains or other causes. Camphor's rapidly repeated doses will be very likely to prove curative. So I would just put it in water, have them pound it, sip it, and it rapidly works. Where am I? Camphor produces tetanic spasms, which is epilepsy, with showing of teeth by drawing up of the mouth. So they had them spasms and they do that. Like nux vomica and phytolacta, but the coldness of camphor distinguishes it. So any epileptic attacks, nux vomica, phytolacta, camphor, but the coldness would really cause you, that modality would cause you to choose camphor. Camphor has internal heat and external coldness. So very hot in the inside and externally very cold. Spasmodic movement of head. Head draws up to the right side. So it would, if that would be in the epileptic situation and all that. Rest of body is relaxed, unconscious. Spasmodic drawing of head laterally or backwards with deathly coldness. Erysipelas, and that coldness, that carbo veg is big time on coldness and not being able to breathe and that. So that'd be another one in here. Erysipelas, which is skin stuff, spreading to central membranes. Eruptions are any kind of eruption. Soft parts drawn in. Skin is painfully sensitive. Okay, I'm over. All right, so that's Camphora. A lot of coldness. A lot of can be epileptic stuff. Can be cholera. Can be influenzas. All kinds of things with a cough, hoarseness, high pitched voice. You'd right away start thinking, and mainly the coldness and everything. They can't catch their breath. And this can be any kind of things like flus, colds, like I said, cholera, whatever's going on. All these symptoms could be. We don't determine. We don't disparage between. I don't. That's not the right word. We don't choose between. What disease is it? What thing is it? What's going on? That's what we want to observe. Having known the disease or what they have kind of can help, but it can also throw you off into the different rabbit holes, like I did with my son. Oh, you got a flu. No, he had cat scratch fever, and I'm thinking of flu. Couldn't figure out the medicines. If I would have thought of the cat scratch fever from being scratched by cats, I would have had a whole different set of medicines. So knowing what's going on, or even judging what's going on, is the worst. You want the symptoms, and you want to know, you want to get as much detail of what symptoms, what makes it feel better, what makes it feel worse, when did it come on, all this kind of stuff will lead you to the right medicine. So you can age, but you don't have to get old unless you eat wrong and don't move well.